I think an entrepreneur would be someone who, with a blank sheet of paper, starts something from nothing. Yeah, something from nothing and then nurturing it. It's all in, skin in the game. A lot of people do things their whole lives and never see value from what they've done. I guess you could be in a company and do something there your whole life and then you die. And I just think that has no purpose. You have no value. Give me lots of money today or give you purpose. I'll take purpose any day of the week. Making an impact, making a difference. It is addictive.
Founding a company is one of the most daunting and lonely paths a person can choose. If you get it wrong, you can lose everything you have. But if you get it right, you could change the world. It's a relentless roller coaster of emotion that changes every day. And to take that leap requires a very rare mix of naivety and courage.
We've had some hot days this summer, but nothing like we're going to get into starting
Today,
tomorrow.
the mercury hit a scorching 35 degrees Celsius.
It's been a year of historic wildfires.
More than 400 times the normal amount of rain.
The Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet.
We know that if we continue releasing carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, temperatures will keep rising and the consequences will get progressively worse.
It is the biggest problem humanity has faced, ever.
Bright is a renewable energy platform. We're on a mission to make every home sustainable. So we help people get access to sustainable homes sooner. The first thing we did was create a point-of-sale finance product that unblocked solar and helped homes generate their own energy. It removes that upfront cost. The majority of homes will start that journey by getting solar on their roof. And then they start to look at how else they can save money for their home, what else they can do to be more sustainable.
About a century ago, we moved from using oil lamps to see in the dark to have electrification. And since then, we've really had an electric grid.
We use this word democratising quite a lot, and it's something that technology has enabled, it putting the power back into the hands of people.
We can play a part in accelerating the power shift to the home. The world is heating up. That has consequences for the cities that we live in. We have to start making changes to consumption and behaviours to be able to turn that around. I think you should give more than you take, and I think we have the opportunity to be able to do that in every part of our life. I think that's what sustainability is. Yeah, so there was a defining moment when I reflect now that made me think, things have to change. And I was working in energy leasing. We're out visiting this customer, and it was an energy management company in Canberra. This was 2015. There weren't batteries really installed in Australia, and what he was talking about was years ahead the opportunity. But something in that meeting just clicked for me, and I thought, wow, I can see what you're doing. And we walked out of this meeting and, I was just thinking, this is it, yes. Boss was kind of like, it's not gonna work. And I was like, what? It's gonna change, you're gonna grow tomatoes in the desert, the world's gonna change.
The energy industry has been around forever. It's this highly regimented, structured industry. Catherine is this classic founder who has worked within an industry, knows it really well, knows it inside out, but can see something that's wrong, some opportunity for it that very often others just dismiss.
I could just see that the world was going to change. The power shift between people buying energy, from energy retailers and just not knowing where it came from, to actually having it on their roof, creating their own energy, making money from it. Like, why wouldn't you do it? That was really that moment where I started to think about what things could be like in the future. So I'd been at Macquarie for 11 years during this stage. During the 11-year period, I'd been promoted once. That was quite unusual. People usually got promoted every few years. I think that was to do with the fact that, I had the kids, and for a while I was working part-time.
I think we both thought she wasn't achieving her potential. She's demonstrated she's an outstanding businesswoman in the last 4 years, but she wasn't being able to show that strength in that organisation.
It was Pete who made me commit that if you don't get the promotion this year, you have to go. That's it, full stop. And I didn't like him for saying that. It made me really angry, because who doesn't want to work for the Millionaires Factory?
She has a very different view on innovation from most people. She could see where the market was going, she knew it back to front, and she could also see how the environment she was in was too probably risk adverse. They weren't really going to be able to capitalise on that opportunity.
It's hard to take on these big corporates. They're set in their ways. Everyone thinks that's the way you do it. It's this real challenge to find a way to crack it open, break it apart, and change how it operates.
I didn't get the promotion, and that was devastating, but everything aligned. Everything aligned, and I look back now, would I have changed a thing? Like, absolutely not. Like, it was fantastic they didn't promote me. I'm just so lucky that I got passed over, because that was the final little piece in the chess, in the chess game, that if I had have got promoted, I'd still be there today, and Bright would never exist. I'd wake up every morning at, 3:30 in the morning and make a cup of black coffee, and everyone was asleep. Blank sheet of paper, here I go. There were things that gave me inspiration at the beginning. The postcard of Muhammad Ali. The fight is won or lost, far away from witnesses, behind the lines, in the gym, and out there on the road, long before I dance under those lights. That would get me going. And I'd I just want to go back to bed, but I'd see that sign, and I'd look outside and I'd see it's dark and everyone's asleep, and I'd go, this is it. This is the moment where I put in the hard work and I prove, in years to come when it's a success, it's because now. I was mad. I was crazy. The first moment was resigning. And when you've done that, from that point on, you're free falling.
There's a saying in Japan that the best time to plant a bonsai was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. And I think that's true with doing a startup. And Catherine is a great example that it is way easier to do a startup when you're, in your 20s and you don't have a family, you don't have financial commitments. But that doesn't mean that you can't still start one at any stage of life.
But it's leaving a job to start something brand new from scratch. And that thing that you're doing from scratch is taking on these huge corporations and this well-structured business model. And usually at a time when everyone else thinks you're crazy.
All founders need to have a high degree of hustle to get anything going, and have high degree of conviction, because invariably in a month is probably 29 bad days and one good day for a long time, and surviving the 28th day or 29th day to get to that good day, you need to really believe in what you're doing.
I did have that feeling that, others may not back me, but I'm going to prove them wrong, and I'm going to back myself. I didn't want to speak to people about what I was doing. I knew that these things they were saying to me took away my energy or my confidence or my belief. You know, that's how I dealt with it, and I didn't want to emerge until it had been done. You know, and being done was like, I had the money and I had the app and I'd done a deal. Like, I wasn't going to fail. I admire people particularly that have either been an underdog or have risen to a great challenge without the expectation of them being able to meet that challenge, either because they're from a certain class of society or because they don't have the skills that someone would typically think you'd need to be able to meet that challenge.
Questions and you're like, I don't know the answers, and then you know what you have to solve for.
I love the Malcolm Gladwell books, and so I just read the one, David and Goliath. And everyone thought that Goliath was stronger. And, you know, he had his armour and the big name and, you know, all the backers. And everyone overlooked David. And I really believed from that story that what people viewed as strength and what gave people success was potentially not what you needed to be successful. That your strength could be in your speed or your agility or your, you know, humility. The thing was, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done Bright. I wouldn't have started it unless I thought it was going to be big. From a really young age, I just loved being outside and have loved gardening. So really fond memories of my Barbara and Judos's house at Cabramatta, and typical WOG. There was a fibro house at the front, and then all around the house was, you know, gardens and chickens, and we had lots of fruit trees, rows of strawberries and tomatoes and cucumbers. Loved being outside, loved jumping on the trampoline and picking the mandarins and eating them. And that's a really happy memory for me. That connectivity with nature definitely gives me a lot of happiness. The first thing that I did when I had my office at Bright at the co-working space was go to Bunnings and buy heaps of plants and, you know, bring them into the office on day one. I've still got a plant on my desk that was there right from the beginning, from 2015 when I started Bright. It was around July 2016 and the money was running out. That was real money for our family. We took the kids out of private school. It was real cash and it was real skin in the game. I'd never gone out. I'd never raised money. I'd never pitched myself. I'd only pitched Macquarie.
I always take my hat off because being a mother, I think she was 30, 38, 39, maybe 40, of two young kids, going around the city saying, I just quit my job at the investment bank. This is going to work. A lot of people didn't think it would. And she had a lot of people push back, and she didn't strike people as the innovative type of person.
Raising capital for anyone is a huge task. It's really tough. Being a solo founder who's a woman, it's naturally harder to raise capital in an ecosystem that unfortunately is dominated by men.
There wasn't a thing in that industry she didn't know. She knew the law, she knew the regulations, she knew the players, the sales, how it worked. She wasn't young and 30 and ex-Harvard or, you know, Stanford. She's knocked on 35 doors and everyone says no.
I think people are more comfortable investing in the t-shirt wearing kind of more bro-y guy who is an engineer who came out of Google or something like that. But I can also kind of believe that if you think your job is investing, your job is to pick things that people haven't seen before. And it's the important thing is to be right when other people haven't seen it yet. As we live in 2022, the world is changing. The opportunity for conventionally unlikely people to succeed is probably better than ever. It's still not high. It's still not as good as the conventional person to start, the tech bros, but you have the opportunity to have a new set of data, a new set of pattern recognition. These people might be the best returning founders ever. We just don't know yet.
Welcome back. Well, he is one of Australia's richest men, tech billionaire Mike Cannon-Brookes, putting his money where his mouth is, buying up an 11% stake in Aussie energy giant AGL.
Mike Cannon-Brookes joins us now live from Sydney. Morning, Mike.
Morning, guys.
It wasn't until Mike Cannon-Brookes came along that the tide really started to turn. It's not just that he invested in her business and he has very deep pockets. It's that when he validated her idea, Lots of other people then saw the merit of that idea and wanted to get on board.
Two reasons your energy bill is about to go up significantly, unfortunately. First is because the prices of coal and gas and so much fossil fuel generated energy in our grid. And secondly, is because of the unreliability of the coal power plants we have, the fossil fuel.
Meeting Mike was quite different to meeting any of the other investors that I'd met with to date. He just got it. He just got what we were trying to do, the problems that existed at the point of sale for energy, and I didn't have to convince him about what the future held.
How is it by moving away from coal-fired power stations now and moving quicker into renewables is going to bring that down?
Renewables are the cheapest source of energy generation that we have. They have been for a little while now. So the more renewables we build, the cheaper they will get.
We were earlier than other people in thinking about climate change as an investment thesis. The market didn't anticipate the growth in solar and in the coming future batteries. It's likely that most dwellings that have a roof, like not an apartment, is going to have a solar system on their roof. So that's one core belief that I think she saw ahead of other people. At the heart of it is the affordability question. So financing really does unlock the potential for adoption. The other alternative is I'm going to go get a personal loan, call up my solar installer and say, hey, I've got the 10 grand, come install it. That friction is just like horrendous. If you think about going to buy a car, you can get the whole thing done once you walk into the Toyota dealership or whatever it might be.
I've heard Mike Cannon-Brookes say it over and over again, but that's the difference between a founder and, that's why I back founders. And whether it's skin in the game or single-mindedness, he has seen how disruption or disruptive business models have played out. Huge achievement and really humbling moment that, may not have got the promotion the year before, but I had these people who backed me. I just felt in that second the world was going to be different. I have really great memories of my mum and her mother. It wasn't in the way that you would normally expect in saying I aspired to be like them because they had great careers or they had great board roles or huge leadership positions. But how I respected them was more around their strength, their resilience, their persistence and their determination. Mum worked at NAB Bank as a banking teller. In those days when you got married, you then had to stop working. But Mum kept pushing in her own way. She worked and she had independence. In her own culture, where women potentially were suppressed, she was vocal and she had a voice.
Should I clip some stuff in here?
It definitely made me think that, well, I have to work. I have to tough it out on hard days.
But it was just sweet potato.
I think it did create a basis for who I am and a belief that, strong women can do anything. It's a hugely complex business, and yes, I knew finance, and yes, I knew sales and distribution, but tech, I knew nothing about tech. My absolute weak spot. Think of other finance products. You're walking into Harvey Norman, you get out your credit card or your Afterpay account and, and then you pay and then you walk out with your goods. But this solar sale is so different. It largely happens in the home.
When I started in technology, it was often seen as something that was going to be outsourced to India. That programming jobs weren't really a good long-term career because they would quickly be replaced by someone in, somewhere else around the world. And I think that has changed so significantly that every company is either becoming a technology company or they're being disrupted by a technology company. That happens across everything, whether it's banking, you're seeing fintech startups that are disrupting how we have a relationship with money and credit, through to cars and transportation, whether it's Uber who's disrupted the taxi industry.
It was a really funny feeling because we'd been doing all these test runs and fake customers, putting them through, but actually that just turn it on, that's the real moment. We turned it on and then we saw these real customers, apply. It was amazing to think, firstly, that what you'd created people wanted. And these were real people, you know, having a need for what I'd created. That's purpose, you know, purpose to know that we're making a difference in customers' lives.
I think it's really surreal when I meet any customer that uses Bright to pay for their solar or their home energy. It's so easy to be in the office and just create products and not really see the impact of what you've created, and so absolutely makes it all real. You're getting solar on your roof. How much solar are you getting put on? Do you remember? Was it
16 panels?
16 panels.
Yes. So hopefully we start a trend in the street.
Will your neighbours have solar?
Yes, they just got it like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, did they just get it?
Yeah. For me, it's first what we're doing for the environment, and then second, my bill.
For a long time, I've had a job that didn't have much impact. And if there was benefit or value created in some of those roles, it was just money. It was just money, and the money went to people, and people got happy, and then they wanted more money. But, you know, I guess I've seen people around me, and specifically my parents, and, you know, my parents never had a lot of money, but they always had a lot of time, and they always did whatever they could for other people. And I think perhaps from a very young age, I've seen that it's not just money that gives you happiness, it's serving others. Give me lots of money today or give you purpose, you know, I'll take purpose with a little bit of money any day of the week.
I think she's much more comfortable being the leader and owning that this is her company, and she's proud to have built Bright to where it is today. And she's always been very ambitious and super competitive. I think that continues, and you can see that she loves to win in competition that she has in the marketplace.
One of the hardest things when you're in a big leadership position is to go to work and be the leader, and you know you're very important and things all turn on you, and then come home and be a parent. The hours is not what kills you, it's the fact that on the weekend it's your baby, you're thinking about it, the buck rests with you. But those founders, it is extraordinarily demanding.
You know, I have evidence that a lot of my anxieties I've put on the kids. You know, and when they have days that were tough at the new school, whether it was with friends or, you know, being teased or bullied, there's definitely a lot of guilt thinking, you know, potentially this wouldn't be happening, you know, had we not moved the schools. So, yeah, people definitely, the family made a lot of sacrifices for, you know, for Bright.
We got to the point where we had children who were probably in year 4 and year 6 and could have a very coherent conversation about equity raises. It was crazy.
Well, from what I know, at Capital Raise, we have to try to get investors to give you money
invest
in your company.
And normally you'd create more shares into the company.
Mm-hmm. And when Mum's going through a capital raise, she normally gets really busy, and there's a week where we don't see her much at all because she's really busy, because she's just trying to create more investors, I think.
At the end of those first 2 years, it was difficult. So we noticed the kids having some problems at school, you know, be it engagement with friends, we weren't close to the parents, so we weren't supportive of play dates. You know, we're often missing milestones that the kids had.
And that was when we kind of realised this isn't sustainable. Like us both working full-time roles, the price was going to be the family, and predominantly, you know, the people who get impacted the most are the kids.
Okay, so we've got one Barbie, one ox tongue.
So, Oscar, what were you saying about homework? When the kids were born, I was in a pretty demanding job. I was Chief of Staff to the New South Wales Premier, and that's a real 24/7 job. And at that point, you know, Catherine was so supportive of me and my career, and it was quite consuming for the family. You know, it was just a good time for me to step back and spend much more time with the children. Rockstar, how was school today, buddy?
Did they say anything about debating yet to the school or not? They still haven't told this whole school.
Our school does so many good things, it's hard for everything they do to not get picked up.
I don't think for a second there was any doubt who was stepping back, because you'd only have to look at the potential of both businesses. And my business is a strong business, but it's not a unicorn. And, you know, you looked at Catherine's and it was a I don't think there was much of an argument.
So for year 5 and 6, Pete was there, and we saw this huge pickup in, their personality, their relationships, their academics, and also just home. Home was just not as many fights.
Do you want to be in charge of that one? Do you want to get a spoon and walk around and do it in everyone's plate?
I'm just really sincerely grateful that he took the sacrifices in order for me to be able to have opportunities.
Yeah, do you think your relationship with Dad's gotten better since?
Yeah, I think it has. I think for record it's gotten worse because I think he's fighting a lot.
Oscar, I never fight with you, so it's you.
It was that real partnership that we've taken turns. If I didn't have that, we wouldn't have held it together.
With a startup, so much is stacked against you that I think it would be near impossible if your family was not on your side. Catherine was so lucky to have her husband not only on her side, but encouraging her, pushing her, challenging her to step away from her day-to-day comfy job and do something. And I don't know, without that, it would be near impossible.
Dad and I have a thing on tonight we've got to go to.
What's the thing?
That fundraiser.
How late will you be home?
I'll come home after work and I'll see you for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And get your dinner ready. We'll try and be home by 9, but if we're not home, I'll need you guys to put the devices and stuff down 9 and go to bed, okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Love you, Mum. Bye.
Love you, bye. Mwah. Have a good day. Sweet. Mwah. Sometimes I wonder why people would choose the life that I have or being a founder. It is exciting, and the success and the milestones publicly are awe-inspiring, but the day-to-day, what you have to navigate and juggle, both at work, both personally, I think it's very complex and very difficult. My fate is sealed. This is my life and I love it. But sometimes, I look with as much awe at people who have a simpler life and don't have to compromise or make that sacrifice.
I remember being at a board meeting February last year, and I had 13 reports. And, I was going through all these different crises at the time and trying to juggle everything. And it was my board that said to me, I think it's time now to start to look at bringing on a COO, a CFO, maybe a CTO.
She is still extremely humble in knowing or wanting to know what she doesn't know. She is very, 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 very keen to get the smartest people around her to make her knowledgeable about it and to solve that problem.
Campaign that's being run again. It's quite funny because at Macquarie Bank, for that 11-year stint, I never had one female colleague in my team. So that's a huge amount of time to never have worked with women.
What our TMD should reflect, but
I have a particular soft spot for women that have been in a corporate environment. I find that sometimes strong women are attracted to Bright and they're attracted to the opportunity to work for a fintech, business with a female CEO, particularly someone who's a mum and has kids and does that juggle and understands it's really real. Because I'm sole founder, I can't do it all. And so I know what I can do and I know what the limitations of my skills are. And outside of that, I need an amazing team to be able to deliver. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
When I get together with other founders of very successful companies around the world, we rarely sit down and high-five each other and congratulate everyone on the amazing job that we've done. The conversation often turns to how have we screwed up and what can we do better? And I do think that the fear of failure is a motivating factor for people. And it's interesting because I think many people in life are too afraid of failure to take that first step. And founders actually use that fear of failure to motivate them to work harder, to do better, to make a bigger impact in the world.
Every single day that I pinch myself and feel excited, I feel really shit scared. I can't say that, can I? And every single day I kind of go, fuck, am I good enough? So I'm not going to say it's imposter syndrome, but I am going to say, like, really? I think that if I have those feelings about, you know, is it all too much and what's happening? And I think that it means I'm in the right place, I'm doing the right thing.
The default outcome for a startup is failure, because they're trying to bring change in the world. And if it was really easy to have brought about that change, someone would have already done it and we'd already be there. So the fact that it hasn't happened means it's hard.
You know, I kind of feel the responsibility of the people that I'm leading. I feel the responsibility of the capital that I have taken on and will take on. And I feel the responsibility of, you know, the customers that I have, and hoping every single day that what we've built continues to deliver to their expectations. I try not to think about that too much. If I'd have thought, you know, a few years ago, am I an entrepreneur? I would have said no. So it's quite funny to think now that, you know, I am an entrepreneur, I am a founder. I've created something from nothing and, you know, it's amazing. I've now got my first 5 years of history where I can look back and say, well, you know, we set out to disrupt someone. We're here now and we're doing more business than them. You can start from nothing and be something. And so I now have my own personal example that you can be the underdog and you can succeed. And that's giving me the fire in the belly that I need now to aim for bigger targets. The analogy that Malcolm Gladwell gave about underdogs being able to disrupt and being able to powerfully disrupt because there's no expectation on them, and that their methods of approaching situations are actually quite different and quite effective. And so I think Mike's seen that play out before.
We could see that the initial dollars that Bright was looking to raise wasn't adequate amount of money to get certain things done, but we hear her conviction about how big this opportunity is.
Think bigger, move faster. Mike just kept saying it on one meeting that we had, and it made me quite frustrated, but I did write it down on a piece of paper. I had it on my desk for a long time. So today, this is a really big team effort, being given or entrusted with $100 million, being able to be backed by Mike Cannon-Brookes and the team at Grok. This changes everything. We're going to change the world. I think the round that I had done, combined with Mel at Canva and Lucy at Airwallex, I think we had accounted for 95% of funds that had been raised by females in the last year. You know, we're not playing in the small fry anymore. When you take on 100 million and you look at your post-money valuation, you know, you're on your way to being a unicorn. Like, this is real. So anything's possible. Cheers. You know, all these other founders and companies that you've admired, like, pinch, pinch, like, you're on your way there. It doesn't feel real. So this is where we have our Powerwall. So the property is not connected to the grid. It's not even that it's off-grid. It's actually not connected to the grid. So when we got the property, we put some solar on this roof, about 6.6 kilowatts of solar, and then we got the Powerwall connected. This is the Powerwall, so this is where all the energy is stored, about 13.5 kilowatts. But that'll be enough to fuel the refrigerator, washing machine, TV, you know, all of your appliances and lights. If we've been here overnight, yeah, by mid-morning the battery's full. It's generating 2.9 kilowatts of power at the moment, and so that's all going into the battery.
Once the battery's full, instead of wasting the energy, we'd pull the Tesla over and charge that up and get that full. It really is a battery-powered future. There are about 140,000 homes that have batteries today. And at Bright, we think in 5 years, it's definitely going to be 1 million homes. And those homes will be generating their own power, they'll be storing their own power. And what's exciting is it's not going to be coal, it's not going to be fossil fuel generation, it's all going to be done in the home. And those homes will become like mini power stations, effectively. Come on, Moo, let's go. Come on, Moo.
Technology is taking over and saying this is just a more cost-effective way and a more resilient way to supply electrons to the home. We should just do that. And I guess there's lots of vested interest in people who've invested money and etc. that's trying to stop that change. And that's probably where the struggle, I think, is.
I think people don't think it's fair that I'm generating energy, I'm putting it back on the grid, I'm not getting paid the fair amount for it. It's going to make sense to people. It's going to make sense in the same way people can grow their own veggies at home, they can grow their own energy at home. Is all the sacrifice that I've put into Bright to date worth it? Without a doubt. You wouldn't even have a heartbeat go past to be able to answer that, absolutely, without a doubt. I pinch myself every day to think about the amazing opportunity I have and to be doing something meaningful that's creating change. And it's not just for me, it's for the family, it's for the kids to see that you can be anything, you can do anything. You know, just for the confidence that you can have in your own destiny and the control that you can have in your own destiny compared to that all just being controlled by somebody else. I think the problem that you have as a founder is once you look back and you look back at the blank piece of paper, you realise that anything is possible, and that's what makes you frustrated and faster. And I'm 45 this year. How much longer, do I have to be able to have this passion and energy? But I do think that there's a reality where you can follow your passion, you can monetize that. And I see that now, but before I never really understood it. It was a fork in the road when I left Macquarie. And if I could have a snapshot of me at that same junction and me, where I am now, where would I rather be? Without a doubt, without a here. It would be so hard to ever be in a position where I couldn't have an idea and create an outcome. So to be on a ladder and to be climbing that ladder for my own self-gain, it's a really hard question. If I wasn't here, where would I be? I just couldn't imagine this is it. This is my moment. This is where I'm meant to be.